Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We are your hosts, Ben and Ethan, and we will be discussing various tech news here at Bedtime. We're excited to bring to you another show. Let's get started with Apple and some of the things that they've got going on. First off, Tim Cook is finally admitting that they use Sony sensors in their cameras. This is pretty wild to me. So Tim Cook has tweeted an admission that Apple uses Sony image sensors in its iPhones as part of the CEO supplier tour in Japan. And they are partnering with Sony. They've been partnering with Sony for over a decade to create the world's leading camera sensors for their iPhone. You know, it was pretty interesting because this was like one of the leaks this week that Sony or Apple was going to be using Sony sensors in their newest iPhone. And then now with this coming out stating that they have been using them for over a decade is pretty wild to me. And
go
I think this is really cool because, you know, Sony's always been one of those companies at the forefront of image sensor technology. And I mean, I've got a few Sony cameras myself, and I love them to death. And now knowing why phones or the camera quality on iPhones is fairly good, it makes sense that they're using Sony sensors.
Yeah, it does make sense. I do find it interesting on a couple things. I feel as though a lot of Apple fans pride Apple on the fact that everything's in-house. It's all made by Apple and they don't outsource anything. And I think little by little over the last few years, we've come to realize that no, it's not. They outsource a lot of things, at least a few. And this is just to add to it. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Sony's very reputable. They, like you said, they do a very good job with their cameras and obviously their image censoring because Apple's been using them for over a decade. And I think that's pretty crazy to think that they've been with Apple and iPhone for so long. I think the other thing that I mentioned that I thought was interesting is over a decade and no one has mentioned Sony being in partnership with Apple. And I'm surprised Sony hasn't pushed the marketing for that, but I'm sure, well, you had some good points there. I'll let you kind of go through why potentially Sony didn't push so hard over the last decade to be marketed as Apple's iPhone camera sensor.
Yeah, I'm with that, you know, I think there was a pretty ironclad non-disclosure agreement that was required to be able to be the supplier for iPhone sensors. And with that, I'm pretty sure there was a good lucrative deal, and the amount of money that was coming from Apple for this type of deal was enough that there didn't need to be any marketing push on Sony's end to justify this. And I mean, especially with the amount of iPhone volume sales that there are worldwide every year, it is a huge amount. And so, you know, with that, they've got a sensor going out in every single one of those phones. So I think there didn't need to be any marketing is my theory, that there didn't need to be any marketing on Sony's end, that the amount of money that they were getting from each iPhone sale was enough to keep them interested and willing to keep this non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, there must have been, like you said, an agreement where it's like, yeah, we'll partner with you and we'll buy a ton of sensors from you and we'll give you a lot of sales, probably at a wholesale price, probably at a discount price, but it'll be a lot of sales. We just won't market you, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure Sony's like, hey, that's fine as long as we get the revenue that we want.
Yeah,
all good. Still kind of crazy it's coming to light.
Yeah, it's really crazy that nobody in the company on both ends ever leaked this information.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, like, for 10 years, over a decade.
Yeah. I feel like if I was on Sony, I'd be like, yeah, and I've got this little secret about Apple iPhones, you know, like,
know.
I don't know. I agree with you. It kind of just blows my mind that there wasn't really any kind of leak about it. So maybe it
Yeah,
just wasn't a big deal. I don't
maybe it
know.
wasn't. I don't know. To me, I think this is a pretty big deal because I
I
love
agree.
Sony sensors. I think they have superior technology when it comes to their sensors and their cameras. And having this on the iPhone to me makes the iPhone just a little bit more appealing because you know that you're going to have a quality camera with that, and it's not just going to be something that was made off of the R&D line last week, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool
So
though.
yeah, cool stuff. Glad that at least that information is coming to light. Speaking of information that is coming to light, sticking with the Apple theme here, looks like Apple is allegedly preparing to let third-party app stores onto the iPhone. This is something that I never would have ever thought that would come to the iPhone.
Yeah.
So Apple is planning to let users install alternative app stores onto the iOS, and this shift would be a remarkable change for the company, which has been famous for only allowing iPhone and iPad users to download apps from the App Store. This is reportedly being spurred by the EU's Digital Marketing Act, which is meant to enact rules for digital gatekeepers to ensure open markets when its restrictions become a requirement in 2024. So theoretically, by um, within the next year or two, we could have alternative app stores within the iOS realm.
Yeah, this could be pretty gnarly. I mean, in the past, in order to get any kind of alternative app store from third-party creators that weren't approved by Apple, you'd have to jailbreak your phone, right?
Yeah,
I just think of the old first, 3 gens of iPhone being jailbroken, and that's kind of what I think of with this is I wonder how regulated it'll be. And, I also wonder how creative people are going to be and how open this is. And it'll be really interesting to see what goes on here. And I want to say we talked about this law in the past. I want to say we discussed it in maybe one of our first 2 episodes. Um, because I think the US was trying to push this as well. They're trying to eliminate the monopolization of uh these storefronts, these e-commerce storefronts.
Mhm.
And I think the US is trying to do it with Amazon Marketplace and a few others, because I just remember reading that the US is trying to allow for, the e-commerce space, specifically around, apps and what can be put onto these marketplaces. They want to make it so it's more competitive,
right.
and that's what the EU is trying to do. I can't remember the article, but I want to say we talked about it in the past. I thought it was really interesting. So I find it interesting because I am all for capitalism in the open market and allowing the consumer to dictate what is in demand, the pricing of things, etc. But at the same time, I do respect that Apple created their own product, which is the iPhone and the iPad, and they have a marketplace for their product. And to me, I think I don't I don't know if it's the government's job to come in and say you need to allow more creative you know, I don't know what you'd call it, digital assets to be purchased on your product. I mean, I think I don't know. I kind of feel like it's overstepping from the government to an extent. I
Yeah,
understand where they're coming from, but it's Apple created this. This is their private, you know, property that they have.
Right.
Why does it matter who they let on and off? If people don't want to, buy the things that Apple is on the Apple Store, then they can go to Android, or they can go to PC, or they can go to, Surface Pro, whatever it might be. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah. And, just for the sake of arguing here,
Sure.
one of the thoughts that I had about that is that the reason that the government has had to step in at this point is because Apple has been overly egregious in their practices of allowing apps into their marketplace. The
Mm,
way that they have their agreements with creators and the things that they have to do within their app store, they have to have such a high level of scrutiny. Whereas, like, even if you just try to post an update, Apple has to review that, and if they don't like it, they will kill that update, and
wow.
they won't let you post it. And
Mm,
it's also gotten to the point where they have not allowed Fortnite to be on their
yeah.
on their app store, or Xbox Game Pass even on on their store to allow users to use.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
crazy.
with this, I think just because of that, that's forced the government to step in and to regulate how Apple is utilizing their products and allowing greater capitalism on that. So, with this, we have the potential of getting Fortnite back on it. Not that I really ever played Fortnite, or getting Xbox Game Pass and the ability to have games on that, and just everything else. Might actually get widgets that are useful.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's like the widgets are a great idea, but they just haven't fleshed them out well enough. It's like
Yeah,
this
I
isn't customizable enough.
yeah, I
Make a
mean that
preset widget for me. I want to change this.
yeah, like widgets have been on Android for generations of their phones,
Yeah.
and it's gotten to the point where you can pretty much do anything that you want. And it's nice that Apple is finally realizing that, hey, widgets are useful, but it it's not customizable enough, and it's definitely not a great user experience as I would like it to be.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have a couple widgets on my phone where I have my calendar and my weather and everything, and it's just finicky. There's things that I want to see. I have different
Mhm.
calendar apps, and there's a specific one I want to see, and Apple doesn't play nice with that, and so it's just, yeah, it's definitely V1. It
Yeah,
feels like a V1 widget
yeah,
uh, situation.
yeah. So maybe for this,
Absolutely.
we'll get better widgets, and even if that's the only thing that comes out of it, that'd make me a little bit happier.
Yeah,
So
no, that'd be good. That'd
yeah,
be good.
but yeah, I think this is pretty cool. Interesting that the European Union has, you know, done so much lately in regulating Apple. Seems like they've just got like a bone to pick with Apple essentially, and they're just saying, what else can we do to
Yeah, the
just get.
charging port.
Yeah.
There's this. EU's done a lot overall with
Yes.
tech. I mean, we talked about the EU and eliminating all gasoline production by 2035. Isn't
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Gasoline vehicle production.
And they're also like really a part of this Microsoft Activision acquisition as well. Like
Oh, really?
they're getting into that too. And
I thought it was just US side of things that was getting into that.
not yeah, European Union's getting into it too, and trying to block this type of deal. And so a lot's getting in the way of that too, which is
I know we don't have
unfortunate.
an article on this. Can we briefly touch on this though?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. The Activision Blizzard being absorbed into Microsoft, right? Not the first time Microsoft has purchased a large game production industry. Bathsheba Games, that's one of the more recent ones they did. And they made a lot of those games exclusive to Xbox, put it on Game Pass. excuse me, Sony throwing a huge fit, right? Because they're worried Call of Duty primarily is going to be exclusive. But then we have Blizzard, right? You have, massive games from Blizzard. World of Warcraft, Overwatch, those have big followings.
Right.
And for those to go exclusive would be pretty crazy. Granted, Sony themselves have a significant number of exclusives.
Yes.
The argument there is Sony built those exclusives in house. Sony's not innocent. They have purchased their own game production companies as well. Not as big, I admit, nowhere near as big as Microsoft. And Sony's isn't as big as Microsoft. Okay. With that being said, do you think that this deal should go through, or do you think it should not go through, and why?
I think it should go through. I think that Sony is trying to block this because they are scared of how small that's going to make them in comparison to Microsoft. And
Yeah.
they want Microsoft to fail so Sony won't fail and so Sony can get bigger, which I understand the business side of that, but really if you want to get bigger, you need to innovate and you need to do something about it rather than trying to attack another company in
True.
in that sense. I mean,
True.
I mean, obviously, if you're competing in an area, you're kind of attacking them in a way with like trying to take away their customer base and get it, but doing it in a petty type of way that it seems like Sony is doing, to me, seems overly petty in such a way that Sony is just crying because they didn't think of this idea first or didn't have enough money to be able to pull something off like this.
I think it's the latter.
Yes.
Money.
They didn't have the money to do it.
I agree with you that I think the deal should go through, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Oh, do it.
So you made the point it should go through. Sony's just being petty because they're afraid that Microsoft will be too big in the space and Sony will lose huge market share. That's probably the main reason why, and their main argument why Sony's saying you should stop this deal, because Microsoft will become too big and own too much of the market share. I don't know what the tipping point is to be considered overpowered, I guess you could say, in the market. I don't know what causes deals to be stopped. And I think Sony, they to an extent, I can understand that they kind of have a good point. If Microsoft does become so big, then they could potentially crush Sony. I don't think that'll ever happen because like Sony outsells Xbox. The PlayStations outsell Xbox anyway. But I can understand Sony's point. And then shoot, there was another point I had, but I'm blanking. Anyway, I kind of think that like the reason why we think, I agree with you initially. The reason why Sony and Microsoft, this tiff they have, the reason why Sony's being petty about it is the same reason why it could potentially be blocked, because Microsoft might become too big. Right. So I agree with you initially that, not even initially, I just agree with you in general, like overall. I think Sony's just, they're just trying to protect their own and they're being petty about it. But it's business. Business is business, like this is business. If you can block your competitor from doing it, like they're going to do anything they can to protect their revenue streams, Yeah.
M&A law is really interesting and something that like I've really gotten into a lot now that I'm in my new role with the company that I'm at. And, it's really interesting, when deals like this are being scrutinized, they're looking at the competition that is going to be if this type of deal would occur. So, for example, like Sirius satellite radio and XM satellite radio, back in the day, they were two separate companies, and they wanted to merge to become one. And their argument for being able to do this is that because it was such a niche market and there were really only two companies, by them merging was not going to cause enough of a monopoly to cause any harm, that it was only going to be good for consumers by that merger. So they allowed that deal to go through.
Mm.
And then also looking at like the Sprint and T-Mobile merger.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Because, having that could potentially limit competition. But where Sprint and T-Mobile were so low in the amount of
table.
Yeah, they were at the bottom of the table, that them merging would not have hurt competition, but would have been good for T-Mobile, would have been good for Sprint, and the overall competition for the market.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, that I understand. Because AT&T and Verizon were just, they're
they're huge.
From revenue standpoint, user standpoint, they were just way ahead of those two. It really was like AT&T and Verizon competing, and then like T-Mobile was like the redheaded stepchild. Sorry if I offend any redhead listeners, but just figure of speech here. You know what I mean? And like Sprint was just like, off the radar. But there have been massive blocks. Man, there have been massive blocks in the past. Let me look it up. Let's see here. I want to say it was cable networks. It wasn't Dish trying to merge with someone.
Ooh.
Oh man. I want to say it was like Dish was trying to merge with Comcast or something. Let's see here.
There is the idea floating around of DirecTV and Dish Network combining.
Oh, here we go. This is it. Comcast proposed the acquisition of Time Warner Cable, okay, back in 2015. But the FCC and the Justice Department, they said, no, not going to happen, which is really interesting. Anyway, that was one that I took note of like, wow, that's really interesting that they'd put the pish posh on Comcast and Time Warner Cable.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have other competition with other satellite TV,
right.
And now we have streaming networks that just pull away, even add more competition to it. So I don't know, it was really interesting. I think it's just very ambiguous. It's very ambiguous. And I come from an accounting and finance background where, like, for the most part, unless you're dealing with tax, with accounting rules and finance rules, it's pretty straightforward. For the most part, black and white. Once you get into tax, that's where it gets very gray. You could be aggressive and justify certain things. And, I'm not a tax accountant, but the M&A stuff it just seems very ambiguous. And, I'm looking for like a hard and fast rule of like, if they own over 80% market share and there's only two competitors, then no, but they don't have that, right?
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
And on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And, with this deal, to Microsoft's defense, they've provided a lot of goodwill of them saying that this isn't an attempt to be competitive, but they are still going to allow these titles to be on Sony's platform. And they provided a lot of potentially goodwill, just for the idea that this type of deal go through and be for the consumer.
Yeah, I agree. And I think historically they've even shown that, right?
Yeah.
They've been trying to push their games onto other consoles. Well, primarily PC. They've been pushing PC and mobile gaming in addition to their Xbox, right? The Xbox Game Pass, the monthly revenue subscription is what they're really looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so historically, they haven't been tight gripped with their exclusives. They've pushed them to other platforms, right? People can play Halo on PC now. That wasn't a thing 10 years ago.
Right.
And so I think historically it's working for them as well. Whether that, changes significantly the outcome, I don't know, but I think that the deal is going to go through. I'm curious to see how it ends up. If it doesn't go through, I'll be a little surprised, but I would love to know like the exact reasoning.
Yeah.
What's the justification for not letting this deal go through? Because
And if
I
it's
think it's
just
kinda
Call of
ridiculous.
Duty is the justification for that, that's a terrible justification.
It's so dumb. It's one game.
Yeah, it's one game. I mean, there's a lot of intellectual property with that, but 1 year Call of Duty could suck. And
Yeah, multiple
so,
years it could suck.
yeah, multiple years. I mean, just
Like
look
the
at
last 2 years,
Infinite Warfare or Vanguard.
Cold War.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, yeah, you can't base it off of one game that potentially could change from year to year. So, and Sony did just acquire Bungie
yeah, mhm.
earlier this year.
Yeah, this year they did that. Yeah,
And
they did
so,
that right after the Activision acquisition.
yeah, and that went through, and it's official now. Sony does own Bungie,
Yeah.
so
Much
I mean,
smaller,
much
production
smaller,
company,
but they do have quite a bit of AAA titles in their portfolio. I mean,
what are
you've
they?
got,
They have
I think, Destiny, isn't it?
Destiny. Yeah, Destiny.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking of.
and that's been very popular. I mean,
Yeah, it has.
ever since they stopped developing Halo, all of the resources that were into Halo went into Destiny, and so that was kind of like, even though it was different, it had a very Halo-esque feel to it. And
Yep.
so, but yeah, so I mean, they just acquired Bungie for the same reason that they're trying to block this Microsoft acquisition of Activision.
Yeah, like I said, they're not innocent.
Yeah.
They do the same thing.
So
they're just
yeah,
mad they didn't have the money to do Activision Blizzard.
Yes. Like you said, I hope it goes through, and I hope that that it would be a good win for gamers everywhere, in my opinion.
One more question to keep this going real quick. I know we have other things to talk about, but does this change seeing the acquisitions happening, right? This year we saw 2 or 3 of these acquisitions happen. I think, we saw Bathsheba Games, we saw Activision Blizzard, we saw Bungie, and I think Sony bought another one this year, which was small as well. I want to say it was a company that produces like fighting games.
Let's see.
Savage Game Studios.
Oh yes.
Oh, that's mobile. But anyway, there were a couple of acquisitions here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This year. And we're seeing that these two giants are just buying up these gaming studios. So if you are a gaming creator, does this change your long-term, short-term goals of let's produce a game, let's get as big of a following as fast as we can, and then let's pitch our studios to Microsoft or Sony and sell? Is that the long-term goal? Because I don't really feel like, I feel as though a standalone studios is becoming more of a commodity.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe I said that wrong. They're becoming more boutique, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not as common. And I feel as though you have to have a strong plethora of games that are going to reliably bring in revenue for you to keep going.
Right.
Do you think that this trend that we're seeing changes game creators' outlook on their goals and what they're trying to achieve?
I think it does.
For acquisition? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it really does, because I mean, if you have an independent video game maker, they are tied to their own goals, If they're publicly traded, they're there for the purpose of their shareholders. But if they're not, they have their own goals in house. Basically, whatever the company decides, they get to run with that. Whereas if you are acquired by these massive corporations like Microsoft, not only do you have the goals that you need to meet, deadlines of your company, you also need to meet the deadlines that are required of Microsoft. So, for instance, I think this is what has been the demise of Halo Infinite, is because they are under Microsoft 343. Aside from their poor leadership at 343 in the beginning of this game, they had a deadline. They weren't going to meet it, so they pushed the game a year later to try and meet that deadline. They still weren't going to make it, and Microsoft said, you need to get this game out. And so they pushed out a half-baked game. And a year later, once we finally got this new update, it feels like what Halo Infinite should have been. But because it was already pushed out a year early, to me, it's too late for them to salvage any goodwill they could have had.
Yeah. I see what you're saying there, that once you become acquired into these giant corporations, right, you have different priorities. I guess what my original question really was pointing towards, before we saw all these companies being acquired, maybe gaming creators were thinking, let's create a studio and let's create a legacy studio that we're known for our games, and we can last decades, 10, 20, 30 years. Now, think of like entrepreneur style of people trying to make a company, and maybe they're just trying to make a quick buck now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're thinking, hey, Sony and Microsoft are just gobbling up anything that's hot. Let's just make a really quick game. Screw legacy, screw like trying to get a big name, make one good game, sell it hot and fast, and then pitch it to Microsoft so we get bought out for like a really high valuation. I think the mindset has shifted from, let's try and be like a legacy, well-known, reliable gaming studio, and now it's like, hey guys, me and you, we're a bunch of friends. Let's just make a game and see if we can sell it, a quick sale. Now I say that very lightly, right? I'm
right.
Oversimplifying it. It's not easy to just pump out a very hot hitting game. Right. But I wonder if that's shifted mindsets of gaming studios of like, okay, instead of going for like being a legacy studio or a gaming production company, maybe we do try and go for like a big buck and sell to these giants that have cash pockets.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it probably has, because before that wasn't even an option. So your only option was to make a really good game and try and build a legacy. Now you can either do that or take the quick cash, quick fix, and potentially get a buyout from Sony or Microsoft.
Yeah, it's almost like, let's create one good project and wipe our hands clean of it and get a big payday. Or let's make multiple projects, just know in the long haul, this is our passion, this is what we love doing. We want to be known as like a foundational, gaming studio that people love and know. And I don't know, that I'm curious to know where this has impacted gaming studios and what their goals are.
Yeah.
So,
I look at the games that I grew up with. Like, I grew up with Halo, and that Bungie was able to build legacy with that.
Yeah.
And now that Halo's with 343, I feel like the quality of that game has significantly declined since Halo 3.
Yeah. Another one is THQ. They did I think they did the Tony Hawk games and wrestling games.
Oh yeah, like I remember playing those wrestling games all the time.
Yeah, and it I don't know if they're privately owned or.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but now I know Activision owns all the Tony Hawk IP.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
And
so there you go. That's like, all right,
yeah, and
acquired.
I don't know what happened with the wrestling franchise, but I think now that 2K Games owns the wrestling franchise because now they make all the WWE games.
Got it. Yeah. So yeah, we have these gaming studios that we knew growing up, and now we just it's I mean, we have some now still, but we're seeing these acquisitions happening. So
Yeah. So
it might just go to Giants.
yes, it might just do that, and that'll be how the cookie crumbles.
Yep.
All right. Should we get into this chat GPT?
Yeah. Let's do it. This is a hot topic right now.
All right. I'll let you take it away.
All right. So this is an article from Harvard Business Review. And so Chat GPT, it's a interactive chat bot. It's AI chatbot, and OpenAI is the company that created it. But it's kind of changing everyone's lives. Honestly, if you haven't heard of it, I recommend researching it because this can perform wonders for you. Okay. And this is like the beginning stages of it. So essentially, you can chat this bot and talk to it and ask for things. Okay. Think of Google, but think of Google as a person. Okay. Like instead of entering keywords and getting a list of results, you can be very specific as to what you want, and it will be very specific in producing a result. And then you can ask this thing to expand on it. Okay. This thing even will code for you. Okay. People have done coding and it has worked. It's just,
That is
it's
bananas.
crazy what this does. So I'll give you another example. I told you this earlier, Ethan. Let's say you want to write a children's book. Okay. You say, hey, I want to write a children's book about founding fathers. So you ask this chatbot, tell me the most popular founding fathers. Gives you a list. It'll give you a list of top 10. You can even be specific. Give me the top 10 founding fathers, most inspirational people in the United States of America. It'll give you a list. And then you can say, give me a 500-word summary of the background of number one, the person number one listed above. And then it'll give you the background of that person. And then you can say, format this into an introduction, multi-paragraph children's story that's fun and poppy, whatever. And then it'll give you this script. It's essentially, it could be your ghostwriter. And then you could, I know people who have done this for LinkedIn posts, for Instagram posts, for blog posts, for books. I know people who have used it for coding in their own work. I know people who have used it to create design, when you're designing something in art or in a studio, or your next clothing line, you have your design template. And when I say template, you have like the words and the style. People use Chat GPT for inspiration. Okay. So give me the descriptive words for a spring outfit, and then it'll give you descriptive words, and you can expand on that. What are the color schemes associated with these specific words? And it'll give you that. It's phenomenal what this does. Okay. The number of users that it has is insane. Okay. And I'll just kind of give you context here. Chat GPT hit 1 million users in 5 days. It took Instagram 2.5 months. 2.5 months for Instagram. It took Facebook, I think, 4 months to hit 1 million users. Wow. This thing is gonna, it seriously is gonna change the world. Not only because of what it can do, but I think people are seeing this, and because it's so easy to interact with, it's the gateway to AI. People are then gonna go, what other AI software is out there? They're going to go to image AI. They're going to go to video AI. They're going to go to like voice acting AI. There's AI software out there that will do voice acting for you. So imagine this. You want to create YouTube videos? You go to Chat GPT, you create a niche channel. Okay. You say skiing. I want to do a skiing YouTube channel. You say, Chat GPT, what are the ski resorts that uh, that deny snowboarders, that do not allow snowboarders? Okay, gives you a list of 3. There's only 3 in the world. And you say, Chat GPT, give me the history of the first resort listed. It'll give you the history. You take that script of the history, you send it over to the voice AI, and you have that person just literally have the AI read it in a voice. And then you can get a visual AI of like this random generated person that's speaking with that voiceover. And then you plug and play into a freaking YouTube video, and boom, you got a YouTube video. Like, this is going to streamline everything. It's insane. And like I said, it can do so much from like a script and ghostwriting perspective, but not only that, it's going to open everyone's eyes to how much AI is going to change the world.
Yeah.
And it's making me anxious, nervous, excited, all these emotions mixed up. I feel like I'm already feeling like I'm missing out on a big opportunity.
Yeah. Like, just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, I'm signing up for this right now as we're talking about it, because I've got to get on this. And it's crazy that how leveraging technology to make your life easier in such a way that it can help you with tasks that could seemingly take hours. Like, I'm thinking this for my use case of writing arguments for court, and how this could help craft arguments in such a way that nobody else has used that and no judge has seen it.
That's the other thing people are talking about is, if you're not using this in your job, in your day-to-day job, dude, you could be living like, let's say you're work from home, you're not monitored. You're asked to write 4 paragraphs on whatever. You plug and play to Chat GPT, and you get it done in 20 minutes as opposed to 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, this thing streamlines it, man. And if you can become an expert in AI, not just Chat GPT, but an expert in AI, then you can go and consult companies on how to use different AI. Man, you can make buco bucks. I'm telling you, buco bucks.
Yeah.
It's something we should do.
Maybe we should do that. Start a new job.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. This is amazing. Like, being able to like use this for your job and do things in fractions of the time. That just makes me think, now I can play Call of Duty all the time during work.
All the time. All the time.
So
only on my Xbox though, because Microsoft is going to win the deal and make it exclusive.
Yes. Only on the Xbox for sure.
And PC. And
PC. Yeah, I'm still trying to get you on the PC train, Ben.
I know. I need to jump on that train.
So yeah, this is really cool. I'm excited for this technology and to see what can come of it. Just like the new avenues that will stem from this, and like the different creations that people will be able to do, that just from something that seems simple on the outside, but like on the back end is such an amazing anomaly.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And it's only V1, right? And it came from like a beta chat version, but it wasn't such an easy interface. It wasn't so back and forth like it is. And I have had friends who've been messing around with it, and they've like quote unquote broken it. Not necessarily like actually broken it, but they've asked questions where like it like goes into an infinite loop of information, and it can't provide the accurate answer, or maybe just doesn't understand the question. So it's not perfect. It's not perfect. Man, this is insane progress.
Yeah. And then I'm just thinking of like the future, like as this continues to evolve and the ability for artificial intelligence to then be able to have empathy for the user. I think once AI gets into being able to empathize with the user, that is when AI is going to really take off and hit that tipping point, because that's going to be able to take in a set of how somebody is feeling and show that I'm not just going to spit out a response, but really know exactly how you were feeling and try and work with you in that instance.
Hmm. I'm trying to, it's so hard for me to grasp my mind around that. Essentially, what you're saying is AI could potentially become almost like the perfect companion
Yeah.
to an individual because any problem or situation you have, it could potentially provide not a, I mean, maybe a perfect answer, but an answer that will help and support. I don't know. I'm trying to understand how impact. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I do think if an AI can understand human emotions and process enough data and have a really accurate algorithm around human emotions, you know, I do think it could have a massive impact. It's just hard for me to grasp my mind around that entire aspect. That this thing ideally is not going to be impacted by anything I say. Like it won't be offended. It doesn't have
Mhm.
emotions, right? And so no matter what I say, its response will always be ideally in my best behavior, my best interest. It'll
Right.
have my best interest in mind, right? And it'll provide, an answer that's empathetic towards the user. I don't know. That's so hard for me to understand. What's that going to look like? And can you manipulate that? If you're a narcissist, can you manipulate it to puff up your ego? And,
I'm sure you could. I mean,
like, I don't know. It's just, would it benefit the individual? Could the individual manipulate it to amplify whatever they're currently feeling? Like if they're depressed,
yeah,
could they use AI to make them feel even more depressed? Like,
I'm sure you could. I mean, obviously, you think if something good comes, somebody's going to be able to try and exploit that
sure.
and take it the opposite route of what it was intended for. So, yeah, it this just opens my mind to what's possible next. What else can we do as helping this to evolve and make it grow? So it makes me giddy and like super excited for what we have ahead. I love hearing stuff about this stuff that makes everything easier for and makes everything more efficient than
Yeah,
what it was before.
I agree. Same. I'm all about optimization and efficiency. So I agree. It's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna get into it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I want to.
Yeah, me too. So, and then we can start our consulting gig and
Let's do it.
take over the world.
Yeah, buddy.
So, all right, should we get into the TikTok story and
Let's do
close it
it.
out tonight? All
Let's do
right.
it.
So, last story for tonight. Interesting news about TikTok. Looks like Texas Governor Greg Abbott is going to be banning TikTok on all state-owned phones, computers, citing the cybersecurity risks. So, Governor Greg Abbott is banning social media platform TikTok from government-issued cell phones and computers, and is becoming the latest governor to target the video sharing app over cybersecurity fears. He cited the concern that TikTok posed a threat to state information, given that the app is owned by a Chinese company. And last week, FBI Director Chris Wray expressed worry that the Chinese government could use the app's recommendation algorithm to manipulate content or users. And he's warned the Chinese government doesn't share the United States values and said that this should concern us. So this is pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
I have my apprehensions with TikTok itself and the way that the company handles the platform and handles how it I guess incentivizes its content creators. Not a huge fan of that. And hearing this at the cybersecurity risks almost makes me glad that I haven't really gotten into TikTok itself. And I'm really surprised at how easily that how easily these cybersecurity issues happen on TikTok. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, I'm not surprised by this. I'm kind of surprised it didn't happen earlier. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened across the board for all government individuals. I know that the 3-letter government organization, FBI, NSA, CIA, I know those guys are very strict on their phones. They don't bring them into like buildings that they work in. And I know that they're not allowed to have TikTok. And so I'm surprised that this isn't like across the board for all government officials. I don't know. I don't know how insecure or how much of a security risk it is. I was under the impression that TikTok was going to be banned under Trump, but then an American company bought the American segment of TikTok. It was a tech company. I thought it was Facebook or I can't remember. And so I thought that was the reason why it wasn't initially banned, because there's some kind of agreement between an American tech company to monitor or to handle it. I could be wrong there, but I use TikTok. I don't know if China's really going to get much valuable information from me. And this is probably my ignorance speaking. I enjoy TikTok, I think, the most out of any of the platforms I use. Mainly because it's fresh information and it's almost like it's unfiltered. I feel as though Instagram has become full of ads.
Yes.
And also full of the same trends over and over again. There's not valuable entertainment on Instagram. On TikTok, I feel as though there's so much more valuable information that I get. I get valuable information on dieting, on DIY, on news. I get actually a lot of interesting news from TikTok that I normally don't get from any of my other outlets. And I love it because it's from creators that aren't a part of a large establishment like Fox News or MSNBC. Mm-hmm. I don't like those. There's so much bias. And so TikTok for me has been very enjoyable. I don't know what data they're mining from me. I probably should, but yeah, I think my ignorance is just, it just shows here. I don't blame the U.S. government for being protected here. I do think it's a valid concern. I think anyone who says, "Oh, the Chinese government, they would never, use TikTok for their own ulterior motives." No, you don't know how the world works if that's the case. China,
if somebody has access to it, they will use it.
100%. And China's a superpower. They want to run the world just like any other superpower. Russia, America, like these superpowers want to be the superpower, Right. And so if they'll use anything they can get their hands on, and learning everything about Americans and their behaviors and the data and being able to influence them with information, that is a pretty big concern. So yeah, so I don't blame the government for doing this. Like I said, I'm surprised that actually it hasn't happened across the board for all U.S. government officials.
Yeah, and
I too am surprised. I really think that this would have been something that would have been across the board with everything state and federal. And, just with the amount of information that's on TikTok and the ability to algorithm to mine that information, you could do a lot with it. And if there are security risks with this, that if anybody were posting content on there, potentially posting sensitive information, and if another government were able to get their hands on that, that would be a major security breach and a huge concern and risk for the government or a country in general.
I agree.
So yeah, this is interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah. So going back to the reference that I had in regards to how TikTok was going to be canceled or blocked by Trump, I found an article here. This is speaking of different big news companies. This is CNBC, okay? And this is back in 2020, September 2020. But essentially what happened is Walmart and Oracle made a deal with TikTok. They have a 12.5% stake in TikTok. And Oracle now has all the cloud services and data and security for the app running through their servers, Oracle's servers. So because of that, at the time, President Trump, he characterizes this deal as a win for the U.S., saying that now that we have somewhat control over the data, the data is being controlled by an American company. There's a large American investment here. I think that's what brought some comfort. With that being said, the Chinese company still has total control over TikTok, right? 12.5% is not a significant amount.
Yeah, that's nothing.
It's just a matter of the data that's being farmed by Oracle on their servers. Is that being transferred back, or is that just held here on American soil? That's the big question, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't even know if that's even answered. Like, I don't even think anyone knows that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but it'll be interesting to see, as this ban comes through, what other governments will potentially do the same thing and follow suit, as well, whether federal governments will do this or have already done it as well. So it's interesting. TikTok has changed how we consume content now in the world and done some good, also kind of made things worse in some respects. Like I love the ability, like the type of content that you can get from it. Just the stuff that I've learned consuming shorter content, but also I think that has ruined my attention span now, and things that are longer than 5 minutes, I'm just like, okay, I need something new, something fresh.
Yeah. I also think it's ruined anyone's ability or patience to do actual research.
Yes.
I think outside of school, it's very rare for anyone to research anything other than social media posts, right? Like, people just, if you want to know a topic, you just go on Instagram, search the hashtag, Twitter, hashtag, TikTok, search the subject. I will say TikTok's algorithm for finding videos related to what you're looking for is a lot better than Instagram's.
Yes.
But my point is, I think social media, especially TikTok and Instagram, have ruined people's perseverance to actually know a subject deep. Unless they're an expert in their career and in their field, people don't do their research. They take a clip that they heard online, and then all of a sudden they become an expert. I have people in my life that do this, and sometimes it really bugs me. And in response, I'll just challenge them. I'm like, oh yeah, really? Are you sure about that? Oh yeah, tell me what's the source? Tell me the source. I'm like, well, I saw some guy. I can't. Is he a doctor? Is he certified? I don't know. He's just, it's like, okay, listen, I'm not gonna listen to you, but I will listen to the guy on TikTok.
Yes.
So
exactly. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward, and as we evolve through time on this. So I'm interested
Yeah.
to see what goes on.
Same. Yep.
All righty.
Cool.
Well, that's what we've got for everyone tonight. Thank you all for sticking with us and for listening to our show. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up. If you disliked it, I guess that other button works just fine too. Please make sure you send it to somebody that you dislike. As well, smash that subscribe button and ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling bell for new content as it comes through on the channel. As always, we appreciate all of you and stay classy. Take care, everyone.
Good night.